So tonight we will be focusing on breaking into tech sales, in particular how tech sales is a great career path for women. So to start, I would like to introduce you to our panelists. First, we have Darcey Harrison, VP of Sales at Swiftype. Next, Kathryn Aimaq, Area Sales Manager at Trinet. Emily Zahuta, Head of Growth Markets here at Bets Recruiting. And Joy Aaring, Enterprise Account Executive at Lyft. To start, I'd love to go through and talk a little bit about how each of you found yourselves working in tech sales.
Sure, I'll start. So I actually came from a very different career. I had 14 years in banking and finance, so a very different transition into tech sales. But being in San Francisco, everybody hears the buzz and tech companies and startups, and it's so exciting. And I was like, I want to be part of that. How do I get into that? And so I really had to take a look and say, okay, what is my skill set? What translates over, and which part of that will make me have the most fun? Like, what am I going to enjoy the most? And it's definitely sales, right? Because for me, it was about really enjoying working with people, really liking the challenge, and then the reward, right, which is the winning piece of it. And so I was lucky enough to know a recruiter who had moved from banking into tech. And I found a great company called Meraki. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it, part of Cisco these days. And I made the leap. And it was scary, to be honest with you. It was terrifying, very, very different, but it was amazing.
So I started off in banking as well many, many moons ago. And once I transitioned from banking, I had moved to the Southern Bay Area and just randomly took a job with Verizon Wireless doing sales for Verizon Wireless. And funny how it was right during the time where we were transitioning from BlackBerry to the Droids and the iPhones were coming out, and I'm looking at this Droid and I'm going, this is ridiculously cool. So I would look at the technology and that and look at it and I'm going, oh, I really like this. And so I found myself really deep diving into learning the intricate details of that particular product, which I think ultimately moved me up to a position in general management for that company. And I was out just communicating with people and talking about the technology and what was coming up and what was next. And today at Trinet, I am a general manager specific to technology companies. So when I go out, and I love meeting with CEOs and executives of new types of organizations, and they're coming up with new technology, and they tell me what they're doing, and I'm going, what? Like, tell me more, what are you doing? And just seeing how products and technology are disrupting the entire world and changing the entire vision of what's going to come next, it's astonishing to me. So extremely passionate about technology, learning more about it, and really seeing how I can support technology moving forward, specifically here in San Francisco and hopefully for the world.
I started in the nonprofit space directly after school, and I was cold calling for large donations. And it was not the career path I thought I would get into, but I really liked the way it felt when the call ended in success. And I wasn't super happy in nonprofit. And I talked to a good friend, and she said, it sounds like a career in sales could be a really good fit for you. And she actually recommended that I meet with Carolyn Betts. And I came in and had a great conversation with her and realized, while sales is spot on for me, being on the recruiting side of it, I get to work with hundreds of technology companies globally and get to know their products, be passionate about their products. And the ability to feel the wins every day was really exciting for me. So that was my career path into sales.
So I think the trend happening here is we all started in something different and we wanted to get into tech because it was innovative and fun and the culture is just so attractive. And so I started actually in advertising and graphic design and decided I wanted to get into business. So I went to get my master's in business, and through that I got exposed to the tech world, which I had never really touched on. And there's something about it. I think we're all here in San Francisco because it's attractive and because there's something different about it and unique. And it's the innovation, the culture. We're changing the world through different means of technology. And so that was something that really touched on my values and my value system of making a difference. And how can I as an individual make a difference? So tech sales in general, just hit on a lot of my strengths as a person. And then it also, tech sales, the tech portion of it hit on my value system and being a part of a culture that is cohesive and moving in an awesome trajectory. So that's how I got into it.
And touching on that a little bit, why would you recommend a career in sales to anyone, and what intrinsic values should they be looking for in themselves to know that they would be good in a sales role?
It looks like that's coming to me.
That was coming back to you, sorry.
Okay. So I think sales in general, there's often a misconception around what sales actually is. And we were talking a lot about this before our panel. So sales can often go into a very negative way where it's like old, staunchy, just non-innovative, non-fun. The culture is not embracing a lot of diversity. But I think tech sales has really changed that. And so I think a lot of skill sets can be brought to this industry because it's a personal business. It's a consultative sale. It's changed so much that it's just really, really broad in who can work in tech sales. So I would just encourage you to think, well, I don't know software. I don't know anything about technology. I don't know anything about sales, but I do know technology. Those can be combined. Your skill sets can be combined to bring something really fresh to the industry.
Absolutely. And something we also talked about before this was sales is predominantly thought of as a male culture, male industry. What sorts of challenges, Darcey, maybe you can speak to this,
Sure.
have you seen with that, and how have you been able to overcome those?
Sure. I think it's interesting because part of it's a frame of mind. You can either walk into a room and think you're going to have a different experience because you're a female, or you can experience something that really surprises you. And the way that I look at that is, don't ever walk into a room and think you're going to have a different experience. And what I find is that most of the time, the person on the receiving end of that is pleasantly surprised. And let them not see you coming. That's my advice, more than anything. I think anybody, and this goes for any trade, it's about really being sharp about whatever your product is, or your company, or your industry, whatever topic it is that you're going to address, and being confident in that and believing in everything that you're doing. And I think as long as you walk in with that type of attitude, there's nothing that can stop you. I think if you falter in that and you question yourself, that's where you open yourself up for some of what those stereotypes look like. So I think it's really up to us to just take that out of our mind and move past it.
I love that. Kathryn, you were nodding. What?
Well, I would think more along the lines of, as women, when you're walking into these companies, and if you're specifically working with tech and tech companies, I think the aspect of having that nurturing female persona that most women do have, it actually goes a long way in sales, because sales is no longer the cheap used car salesman mentality. It's now you have to be a consultant. When you walk in to these companies, you're walking in and you're the expert, right? You're the expert that's consulting them to find out what their needs are. You're finding value for those particular people, and then you're addressing their needs with your product or your service or whatever it may be. And when you walk in there with the confidence, the mindset and mentality that you're the expert and you've completely submerged yourself in that market and what it is that you're selling, and you know everything around, who your competition is, or ultimately why clients need what it is that you offer, and you're confident about that, at the other end of the table, when they sit down with you, you're the expert, you're the person who knows your product and your service, you're the one who's going to win the business.
Very true. And I think, Emily, you can speak to how the face of sales has changed, being in the recruiting side, what you've seen over the years, and how sales has changed, and maybe even how tech has changed that.
Yeah, I mean, sales has changed a lot since I've been in it. I've been in this industry for 5 years, and I think the inside sales culture has done a lot to change that too, being an office space that people really enjoy being in, a true culture around it, not so much on the road all the time, not the dinner sometimes, but it's more of what we bring to the table, what we bring to the office. I think that technology's helped shorten the sales cycles that we deal with too. We've talked about this earlier, and all the various tools we use can put us in contact with the people we need to be in contact with without necessarily meeting them face to face, which is dynamic and different. We have so many tools at our fingertips that make what was traditionally kind of a scary job with a quota hanging over your head a lot easier, a lot more attainable, a lot more fun, and a few of the changes that I've seen.
Absolutely. And I mean, Joy, maybe you can speak to this, but how would you describe the lifestyle and how the inside sales has changed the lifestyle of a salesperson?
Yeah. So I think tech has drastically changed sales, right? Just because tech continually disrupts whatever is happening. So we've seen within sales, you would traditionally have just a salesperson, but now we have customer success, client services, people who monitor the health of your account. It's just completely broadened what the portfolio we bring to the client, going back to the consultative sale, is that customer is now, they don't know the technology, and so they're looking at us and looking at our entire team to help them not only buy the product, implement it, but then ensure that it's adopted throughout the entire organization or whatever business unit we're selling into. And so because of that, that has changed the lifestyle of every person that touches that account. So traditionally we think of salespeople going out, going to parties, hosting their clients at these lavish dinners. It's completely changed where we're now in a relationship with them that they're looking at us as the expert, not as the person who buys them dinner. And so it's put us in a different position, and a really amazing position, because now we can wear the hat that I feel like most of the ladies on this panel love, is sharing our knowledge and helping our clients achieve their goals. So that's really what our lifestyle is about, is making a difference.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you touched on something that I think is really interesting, which is there are a lot of different roles within sales. We have account management, customer success. What might make one of those roles more attractive than the other? And I'd love to open this up to everyone, but do you think people are sometimes steered one way when maybe they shouldn't be, or anything like that?
Yeah, I'll answer that. I think everybody has really different skill sets, right? And depending on the stage of the company you're working at, the same job title can be very, very different. So I've worked at very large companies, and now my last couple roles have been in very small startups. And the beauty of that is people can really figure out what they want to do, and you can grow within a company and kind of create these roles as you go. My head of customer success started as an office manager. Now, she went to Berkeley, right? So it wasn't exactly what you'd expect, but she was able to really forge the path that meant something to her and what she really enjoyed, right? But I do think that people tend to get steered in a direction because this is what the company needs at a certain period of time, or this is what your manager thinks your skill set is. But what I would encourage everybody to think about is, like, what do you enjoy out of it, or where do you want to actually grow your skill set? Because I think if you push yourself to try something new and different, you're really going to broaden your experience and be able to go through many of these different roles. And at the end of the day, it's going to make you a more valuable employee and a more valuable candidate in the future.
Absolutely, yeah.
I also think that when you enter into a career in sales, tech sales specifically, it's a relatively easy role to get into. You don't have to have a ton of experience to break into the lower level positions. And what's great about it is it opens up the doors to account management, customer success, sales engineering, whatever it is. So the career pathing, whether you're going to be a lifetime closer or you find other opportunities within an organization, sales really helps you build the relationships you need to get into that, figure out what your strengths are, and then have the foundation to be able to move into those roles within your company or another company. So it's a really great start as you figure out what you're good at and what you're not good at.
And to add to that also, it's funny, I have a few mentees who come to me outside of where I work, and they go, well, Kathryn, I really want to be in sales. Like, I see all these people, and they're making great money, and they're doing really well, and they go, I really want to do that. And I go, well, okay. So first step number one is, do you have the personality and the mindset to go out and do this particular job? And whatever type of sales it is, there's a certain type of personality and a certain level of grit and a certain level of desire that you have to do the job. And so I send them online, and you guys could all go online and take one of those tests that indicate, does it make sense for my personality? Would I be able to do well in sales? And so we'll go do that, and they come back and they're like, yes, it looks as though, it's right for me. And so the next step is, go out and connect with as many people as you know who are in upper level sales positions in all different types of companies, and see what they have to say about their job and what the difficult areas of their jobs are, and what the successful areas of their jobs are, and what's been super difficult for them or what's been successful, and just really figure all of that out and see and learn from them and learn. Everybody has fallen at one point and gotten back up, and so if you can learn from them, it'll help you essentially get to figuring out what makes sense for you, and then ultimately the relationship building piece, right? Through that, building strong relationships, ecosystems, networks of people that you can communicate with and collaborate with, and who can ultimately introduce you into other people. If you have the desire to build friendships and relationships like that, I think that's the route that we should be going in to find sales.
And you mentioned something about being a mentor and having mentees. I think something a lot of people struggle with early on in their careers is finding someone to be a great mentor. Does anyone have recommendations on how to find a great mentor, and then when you are a mentor, how to turn around and be a great mentor for someone else?
Absolutely. I can real quickly on that one. LinkedIn should be everybody's best friend. So if you go on LinkedIn and you find somebody, now reaching out to the CEO of like HP or something may not be appropriate, but but I would go out and connect with somebody who's in a more of a startup type organization, who is in a VP role or a director role or something of that sort in sales, and just reach out to them and tell them that you would want to offer something to them, services that you could potentially support them with in exchange for them to be your mentor. And you would be surprised at how many people in upper level positions are more than happy to help. Try that. That's one thing I would recommend.
And it's really flattering to be reached out to in that way.
Absolutely.
And I think finding a mentor, I think people go to the top of the totem pole. You think, if I want a job in sales and I need to have a mentor, that's the VP of sales or whatever. And in my opinion, I think find someone that is relatable, find someone you're comfortable talking to, find someone that's maybe one step or two steps ahead of you in the direction you want to take your career. It doesn't have to be as extreme too. And it's a really flattering thing to be asked, and so it shouldn't be a scary question.
I would add that also don't think about it as someone who's above you in terms of like the ladder of levels, because I have mentors that are essentially peer level to me, but I learn stuff from them every single day, and we're imparting wisdom upon each other, and so it never hurts to just ask. A part of our culture at Lyft, which I absolutely love, is getting coffee with other people, even outside of the sales organization. When we start, we're given a gift card, and they encourage us to actually ask people to get coffee, someone outside of our department. And so you don't have to necessarily think of, okay, well, I want to move up in sales, so I should talk to someone in sales. Go grab some coffee or lunch or something with someone in engineering. The lessons I've learned from talking to engineers is absolutely amazing and has helped my career so much. Learn something from someone in marketing. So I think you can have a relationship with multiple different levels and multiple different skill sets, because then you're just going to be a well-rounded person in general.
Absolutely. And the corporate ladder came up. So what advice would you give to someone who's looking to take that next step or move up either at their company or at another company, but take that next step towards a higher level role? Darcey?
Sure. I think technology is such an interesting space because we have a really wide variety of people that work in there. And you've got first-time founders who might be their first job and they've built this incredible technology, and then you've got people who have done it 2 or 3 times, right? And so I think the value that you get to bring to each of those companies can be really, really different. What I will say across the board at each of those sizes of organization is you have the chance to show that you can really be strategic. And specifically for women looking to get into this business, I think because we're underrepresented in the space, something that you can really bring to the table is diversity of thought and very different opinions. And being able to show your different opinions and that you're willing to go out and try something different that nobody's done before and show why it can be successful and share that with your team, I think shows your leadership capabilities. I don't know if anybody's read the book Lean In. I'm sure everybody has at some point in time. One of the things that I took away from that book is that women specifically don't always help each other, right? Because we're used to being like, oh, well, I'm the only girl there and this is so great. But at the end of the day, I think if you can walk into a company, show you're strategic and share your success, you're showing that you can help grow a company and the impact that you can have, whether it's on your department or the organization as a whole. And I think that that shouldn't be lost on anybody, no matter your gender or your role. But something that we tend to forget when we are one of the few women in the space. So share the power that you get to bring, and show the company everything you can help them with.
I think that's so spot on. And I also think when you're younger in your career, older in your career, wherever you fit into the spectrum, and you see an opportunity that looks like it could be a fit for you, and you want to move up, and you think you're ready, and you've proven yourself, ask for it. I think we sit back and wait to be asked a lot of the time, and I know that earlier on in my career, I definitely wouldn't have been the one kind of jumping up and saying, I'm ready for this, I want to try it. Ask. I think there's so much power in if it's a no, okay, well, what do I need to do to get there? What do you need to see from me? And start the discussions of bettering yourself, being better in your role, taking the steps towards what you want. But you are the only advocate for your career most of the time. So if you're not asking for it, someone else isn't going to ask for it for you.
I think you make a really good point, and you brought up Sheryl Sandberg and Lean In. And sometimes I always ask myself if I'm hesitant about something. I'm like, would Sheryl Sandberg do this? Or would a man hesitate about this? And sometimes most of the time the answer is no, specifically around pay raises or asking for something that you want. It's just kind of innate in our personality to be a little bit more hesitant and reserved. And I just say, stand up for yourself. Take your point of view and hold it strong, because it will move you forward in your career.
Absolutely. And Kathryn, anything to add?
So, one additional thing you can do is if the company has separate or additional extracurricular type projects that could expose you to other areas of the organization or executive leadership within your company, wherever it might be. I'm actually in a program right now. I asked for it. So I asked for it. I said, hey, there's this program, we call it Braveheart within our company. They pick 20 people. We have a 33,000 plus organization. They pick 20 people that they want to be a part of this program. And ultimately, it's a 6-month program where I'm going in and I'm analyzing a certain area of the business, present it to my CEO, 30-minute presentation. And you better believe I asked for that because I want to be able to show to the executive team, here's what I could do. So when the time comes that something pops up, top of mind. So try those extracurricular type projects that are within your organization that'll expose you.
Absolutely. So a lot of what we just talked about was taking the initiative and having the grit to step up. I think we have a lot of people in the audience who are recent grads, or maybe you're looking to change industries. So what are some keys to success that you think have made you successful, whether they're their personality attributes, aside from just being willing to do something a little scary? What else should people be looking for within themselves?
Okay. I think there are several things. One of the big things I want to touch on is something that I've been pretty focused on for the last year, little over a year, is really defining what my values are for me as a person. Going through different exercises to figure out what it is that I want as joy, not anyone else. And how does that align with a value system that I have for myself? So we often hear this in corporations, they have values and they have mission statements. Well, what is joy's values and mission statements? And then taking that forward and, applying it to my decision-making process. So if you're thinking, okay, well, what extracurricular activities can I do? What meetup should I go to? What people should I associate with? Applying your value system to that makes that decision a whole lot easier, because you can quickly, one of my values is making a difference. One of Lyft's values is also making a difference. And so you start to see that alignment in your decisions, and you can quickly garner whether that's something you want to pursue. So I wish that I actually would have done it at a much younger age. And it would have helped me, guide me in a different direction. I love where I'm at now, but I think it's something that as a young woman or as a young person and a young individual, it's something that we're not taught. And so doing that for yourself really provides you a kind of a guiding light, if you were to say.
That's great. Emily?
Sorry, I'm going to jump in too. I think that's great. And I also, in a slightly different scope, working at a recruiting agency, we talk to people all day long about what they're looking for and what they want and who they are and what they've done in their past. And the really cool thing about sales, all roles, all levels of roles, is you take two people that are really successful in sales, their backgrounds, sometimes their values, their motivations, night and day different. It is a career for a variety of people because you're selling to a variety of personalities. And there isn't one piece of one person that I think makes you a slam dunk for sales. So as you're thinking about getting into it, that's kind of reassuring, because your uniqueness, the things that make you who you are, prove to be an asset as you step into a role in sales. So the variety of personality traits that make you really good should open up the scope for you too. So something to think about.
I think that's great. And going off of that, I know everyone here has hired at one point. What are some things that you look for when you're hiring, maybe questions that you've asked to pull these things out, or attributes that you really look for? I think, Darcey, we can start with you. And
Sure. I think there's the standard, we like competitive people, we like hungry people, we like people that are self-motivated, right? Everybody wants that. So I think you really have to kind of move past that and understand, like, who's the audience that you're actually trying to sell to, and what makes someone a good fit at one company does not necessarily make them a good fit at another. The one thing that I will say I find resonates most with customers when you have a salesperson is somebody who's trying to solve a problem for them. So that means they have to be really passionate about what they're doing, passionate about the product, and care about solving a problem for the client, right? And we've talked a lot about how sales has changed, and it's not a car salesman, like, how can we get you this deal today, right? It's very much about being consultative, growing with an organization, hoping they're going to become a larger customer for you. And so you need people that have that type of mindset. And so the way that I run interviews, for example, at my organization is we've got like a multi-step process. They come in, and the first thing they do is they hang out with people, like probably 2 to 3 people in what we call a social screen. And they just chat and they talk and they get to know each other about what are your interests, what are your hobbies, why do you like to do that? And then they start going through like some different processes in the interviews where we focus on like something that would help us understand if they're tech savvy, something that helps us understand if they're process oriented. And we go through all of these different phases. And in the end, we come together and we recap on it. And it really helps us understand what drives this person. And that's what we want to know. What drives you? You know, I mean, don't get me wrong. We all want to hire people who have always been to President's Club and hit 300% of their goal. And, you know, if we could all hire those people every day, that would be fantastic. But there's so much more to what drives their behavior that's going to determine whether they're going to be successful at your organization or not.
To add to that, thank you for making it so beautiful. But to add to that, I mean, like you mentioned, it's every type of role that you're in, or any company. Every company's different, right? I have 2 people in this room that actually work for my organization, so they could attest to it. But the type of sell that we do to our clients is extremely complex. It's an extremely complex sale. So somebody who's a self-motivator, just me, myself, I look myself in the mirror every single night and I go, did you do everything you could possibly have done today to be the most disciplined in your role, to be the most efficient in what it is that you did, and did you do the best job that you could have done in every meeting that you had? Could you have said something that could have made that outcome be better than it was? And if the answer is yes, then self-improvement, right? Somebody who's focused on improving themselves on a daily basis and becoming better every single day. Somebody who, when they set their goals and they're writing it down on paper, like that's a huge thing for me, that you have goals, you write them down on paper, and once you get close enough to almost achieving that goal, they push it out a little bit more. So I always ask the question, I say, well, how do you follow through with your goals, and what do you do? And when I achieve it, I'm happy. It's do you achieve it and you're happy that you achieved it, or I see that I'm getting close to it, I want to push it out a little bit more. And that mentality essentially shows the drive that the individuals have. The grit, as we mentioned earlier, the sense of urgency is extremely important, and for us particularly, and ultimately rounds back to what I said initially, somebody who can deal with complexities and not freak out about it and go, okay, this is fine, here's what we're going to do, something just, fire just went out, what are we going to do to make this a win every time? So that's what I look for.
Do you want us all answering this?
I was going to jump into the next one, and I think you guys will have good insight here. Just before we get into Q&A, if there was one snippet of advice, one tweetable fact that you could give for someone looking to join the tech field, what would it be? Joy, we can start with you.
I think continuous learning. So this is a big part of not only our sales culture from our chief business officer. One of his values is to outlearn. And it touches on one of my values, which is learning and resourcefulness as well. So just being willing and able to take feedback from anyone, whether that's someone who is not even at your level, maybe they're more junior than you, maybe they're more senior than you, maybe they're a peer level, just continually opening yourself up to knowledge, because I think one of the things we can get as just individuals and as salespeople is very defined in our process, and to continually learn, it allows us to continually adapt, and that's what the tech field is all about, is constantly moving in a different direction. So that would be one of the things I would impart.
Mine's pretty simple. It's take a leap of faith, jump in, try it. All of us were sitting together before, and how did you get into your job? How did you start in your role? None of us thought that we were going to be in sales, that should tell you something. So my tweetable fact is take a risk, jump in. I think you'll be surprised by what you see.
Simple. Do what you feel is right for you. Don't do it for anybody else. Don't do it because somebody, came up to you and said, oh, this is a great opportunity, you should jump into it. Do what feels right to you, to add to what was just said.
You do you.
You do you, girl.
That's what the people in my office say.
You do you.
I think for me, the biggest thing that I always tell people is that if you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing. And so my PC version of this little card I have is forget fear. I'll let you figure out what it really says. But I keep this little thing on top of my fridge, and every morning when I go to get my coffee creamer, I look at that and I remember, just don't have fear. Like, if it's uncomfortable, embrace that it's uncomfortable and just push forward. And then at the end of the day, say, okay, how did I figure out what did I learn from that? How did I figure out how to do something differently? But be uncomfortable, it's okay.
That was great. I'd love to open it up to the audience now.
Hello, thank you very much. My name is Allison, and I actually just started my first sales role a couple months ago.
Congrats.
My boss totally bait and switched me. I applied for a client success role, and she got me so jazzed up about this company. I loved it, and it was like, surprise, it's account executive. And so far, I'm really loving it, but the reason I really wanted to come here is because I don't know any other women in tech sales. And also, you mentioned something about finding a mentor, and I'm like, yes, that's what I need to do. I need to find other women who are in tech sales. And my question for you is, you said, well, if you're messaging them on LinkedIn, bring them something. What can you do for them? For someone who's junior like me, other than take you out for coffee or for dinner, I don't know what I can provide. So maybe what are some things that you've been offered or you suggest your mentees offer when finding a mentor?
Great question. I actually did this myself, so I'll tell you what I did. Okay. When you go and you find a mentor via LinkedIn or some other source, you really want to spend time researching who they are and what they do. It's extremely important. So when you send a message, if there's commonality, which I think we also mentioned up here, for example, I just connected with Mohammed Chaudhry, who's actually a CEO, friend of one of my executives, but I connected with him on a personal level, and he is the CEO of Silicon Valley Education Foundation. And education is a huge passion for me. I want to be a teacher. In the next couple of years, I want to be a teacher in business. So I connected with him, and because it's a non-profit organization, I told him I want to volunteer my time for his organization. I'm going to start off with volunteering my time to your organization, and in return, I am also going to come in and connect with your sales team and teach them how to close. And then I would like your personal time in supporting me and finding the schools that would take me to be a teacher, and I want to learn from you and how you became the CEO of your organization, how you connect with people, how you made your network bigger, because that was the mentorship I needed from him. Also, to add to that, as we mentioned, you can have a different mentor for every different aspects of your life. Your personal life, you can have a mentor or two. Your business life, you can have a mentor or two. Relationship-wise, you can have a mentor that can help you. Somebody who's been in a relationship for 50 years, be the best mentor for you for relationships. So it doesn't have to be one person. It can be many different people, but find how you can relate to that person and what you can give back to them in that regard. For me, it was volunteering.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
I want to add one quick point. Don't ever think that you don't bring anything to the table.
Yeah.
You always bring something to the table. So you are new to sales, but you've been doing something for the last how many years? So you have something valuable to bring. You always have something valuable to bring. Just figure out what it is that's valuable for that particular person. Maybe it's a fresh perspective.
Yes.
Maybe it's some learning in another area. You can be valuable to a CEO of a company. You could be valuable to anyone.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Any other? Yeah, Lillian.
Hi, I'm Lillian. Thank you for being here. So as a person in sales, I'm looking to take my career to the next level. And in addition to networking, in addition to looking for mentors and building relationships in that way, I also want to take on a personal project myself outside of work to be able to sharpen my skill set, understand more of what I'm doing, become better at my job outside of my job. For designers, that means building a project related to design. What would you say could be a unique project that a salesperson could take on outside of work to be able to just do something awesome, to learn more and also stand out?
Who are you asking?
Anyone? Sorry, I was just looking at one person.
I can answer that question. Just one thing that came to my mind was, if you're passionate about it, obviously you want to make sure that it's something that really strikes you so that you'll actually want to give your time and you'll give the most valuable resources that you can offer. But volunteering, being a part of a board, maybe there's an organization that you can be a part of. I think showing leadership skills is invaluable for any level of sales, because we have to be a leader to get sales done. We have to manage projects. We have to be a consultant. So being a part of a nonprofit organization, maybe being a part of a group that teaches leadership skills, public speaking skills, a lot of these different organizations can show that you're a well-rounded individual, and that's what makes a successful salesperson.
I would add to that, organize something for your company.
Yeah.
So there's so many great causes around that if you actually organize, like go do Habitat for Humanity or go to Glide and have your whole team feed lunch to the homeless, or do junior achievement. There's so many different things that you can do, and I think if you want to show leadership within your own organization, what better way than to get everybody there involved about a really passionate cause.
Yes, in the back. Tim's coming with the microphone.
Hi there, my name is Gabrielle, and I want to first thank you. I've really enjoyed your insights. It's been really uplifting. So one of the questions that I have, I'm curious about so many of the comments that I've heard already, but the one that I find most compelling is the aspect of confidence and kind of tenacity that really defines a successful salesperson. And I think that those two characteristics are not nearly as present in as many women. I think that the way in which women have been socialized, they're as educationally competent and qualified as men, but for whatever reason, the confidence that we project sometimes isn't quite there. I know this is sort of a nonverbal communication indicator, but oftentimes women have sort of sloping shoulders this way, and the message that kind of projects is not nearly as confident as this. And you see men with like their chests out, the kind of the joke is that men pound on their chests. So I'm curious, what are the areas in which you have been able to successfully build your own confidence? Because a lot of sales is rejection. And I think sometimes as women, we take that very, very personally. So in what ways have you sort of built up your level of confidence to deal with no and to get to yes? And thus, what are the skills that you've helped, or that have helped you become more tenacious?
Sure, I'll start with that. I think one of the most important things as a woman is that, first of all, you have to define your own brand, if you will. Like, how do you want to be perceived? Why do you want to be perceived that way? Is it completely against your personality, or is it really something that you can bring out? And anybody who wants to come across as successful, or that they can walk in and own a room, like, you have to believe that first. So build your own brand. That's number one. I think the second piece of that is there's definitely a difference in how genders handle themselves, and everybody's heard like, hey, fake it till you make it, right? There's a little piece of that that's true. Like, it's okay to go in there and be successful and tell yourself you're going to be successful, and then when you walk away, figure out why you were or why you weren't. But it's really about believing in yourself, and it's okay to fail. Just pick yourself up, dust off, and you're going to go do it again.
Building your brand, as she mentioned, extremely important. It ultimately, the final result is, what legacy do you want to leave behind, right? So when you think of your legacy, you think of building your brand. And to break it down, if you guys haven't read the book 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem, I highly recommend it, because it'll help you learn those particular layers of self-esteem that will ultimately result in the confidence.
I also think that as you're learning to figuring out what your brand is and feeling a little shaky going into any new job, whether it's sales or not, finding someone that really champions you internally. I'm lucky enough to work for Carol and Betts, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was scared out of my mind when I first started. We all don't want to fail. Fake it till you make it, for sure, but knowing someone that can champion you even when you haven't got the sale yet, but they're cheering you along the way, someone that's going to really pump you up, make you feel good about yourself as you're getting it wrong and then getting it right. Think about who you're working for and interview them just the same way that they're interviewing you, because that's going to be a big factor in making or breaking your confidence too.
Thank you. Great question. Anyone else? Hi, Adam. We're making Tim run around tonight.
I was thinking about how sales has become very complex, as you said, and what information sources, especially for people who have no experience in sales, what's going to help them if they can read a blog every day or look at something, help them understand if the place that they do end up working at, if that place is even run properly, or what are the standards for the industry, because there's people who are just starting new businesses, all kinds of things going on. And there are poorly run organizations, but you wouldn't know it as someone coming in and just starting out. So where do you find, I guess, new information about great things going on in sales?
I'll shameless plug for a quick second. I think you probably know where I'm going with this. Recruiters are a great option. And whether you take a job through a recruiter or not, we tend to know the companies pretty well and the personality types that are successful and not successful. So I would encourage you to at least run an opportunity by a recruiter, even if it's not something that they're immediately working for. The industry, someone who's been in it, ask your friends, ask people that I think recruiters are a good option because we tend to know a lot about the businesses that we support.
I think also when you go into an interview, it's really, you're nervous, you want the job, or you're not sure if you want the job, but you want a job. And so you go into a company and you think it's about them interviewing you. Well, take a step back and come prepared with questions and reframe it that you're interviewing them as well. So coming prepared with some of the things that you really want to see in the company, and making sure that you ask that of not just a person that you're interviewing with, but multiple people. And I mean, we live in Silicon Valley, which it's the world of information. So going to meetups, meeting people who work at those companies, reading about those companies, there's a lot of different blogs, different articles that you can just really dig into that company if that's something you really want to find out about.
Yes.
I have a question for you, like more on the tech side of the sales part of it, but that whole kind of aspect of when you come into a team, especially if it's predominantly male, and you have that sense of having to kind of prove yourself that you belong there and that you know what you're talking about. How do you handle that kind of thing, and how do you like recommend handling it without being the B word? Because that sometimes comes up in that situation. So that's what
I would say I'm more on the milder side, so if I let myself be me, I'm more quiet and more introverted, which sounds crazy that I'm in sales, but that's just me. And so I find just staying true to yourself, being authentic, being relatable. So one of the skills I think we often have as women is just the innate ability to be listeners and to have relatability. So if you're bringing that to an organization that's predominantly men, they're not going to be used to that, but when they get used to that, it's going to be refreshing. I remember when I started at Lyft, I was the first woman on the team. And there was a lot of large personalities. And the first couple days, I was a little overwhelmed, and someone's laughing. And we have some women from Lyft who remember this, who are the first women on the team. And you just have to be comfortable in your own ability, know that your own skills and what you're bringing is valuable in a different way from what's already there. And I think it's been a pretty interesting transformation to see the change of when I came in and when some of the women in the room came into Lyft that was very dominated by these large personality men, to bring this softer side and see them open up to actually learning about how we pitch a sale and how we close a deal, because it's so different from them. And so I think just coming in, being yourself, being authentic, being able to know what it is that you bring to the table will ultimately translate into your success within that team environment.
I think I can add to that as well. So, did you know that the Dodgers are up 2 games from the Giants? Just random, right? Just knowing random things to be able to relate with people of all different types of people. Learn to become a little bit more of a chameleon, to just kind of learn about them and find things that other people like to talk about. And if it interests you, learning to talk about that stuff too. And I highly recommend taking, if you're on a team of say 5 or 6, predominantly it's all men and you're the only female, I would take each one of them out to lunch and really get to know them from a personal level outside of work, and really get to know them, see how you two relate, and communicate with them on that level.
I think as somebody who has an incredibly bold personality, and I've worked with Bets for several years, so I think they know me pretty well, but I'm absolutely unashamed of being exactly who I am. And part of that is as you go through your career, you have to be really, really comfortable in your own skin, right? But I think probably one of the most important things is that why is it different? Like, how would you build camaraderie with females on a previous team? Sure, there might be a couple of different topics, but just be yourself. I was the first female executive at my company. I was the only female executive at my last company, and I was one of the only female executives at my company prior to that. And it never changed how I communicated with people. And at the end of the day, because I was just myself, we all had fun. We all got to know each other. We built some really lasting friendships. Don't ever be ashamed of who you are. Mm-hmm. People can think that you are too bold. Someone actually asked me not to read the book Lean In because they thought I leaned in too much. So to give you some perspective, but just don't be ashamed. Be yourself and just be natural. I think that's more than anything what's going to cross those borders.
Anyone else? Those were wonderful questions. Well, thank you all. Thank you so much for coming and being here. This was wonderful. And thank you, everyone, for coming out. We are still going to do another little cocktail session. So please have another glass of wine and visit with our panelists and everyone else.